Is Paramount Plus in danger? Could Paramount actually shut down Paramount Plus? That's at least what Wells Fargo is saying. Welcome back to the Hannahcast YouTube channel, and today I'm going to be discussing the financial problems that Paramount has been having, and that Wells Fargo is saying that Paramount Plus should just be shut down, and what are the reasons why Paramount could be shutting down, and what the possible ramifications of this could be. Now, I'm looking at IndieWire here, and what IndieWire is saying is, by the end of a disastrous trading day, Paramount negative 21%, one crippled by poor quarterly earnings and a major cut to shareholder dividend. Equity analyst Stephen Cahall, I don't know if I said his name right, of Wells Fargo, suggested that the company just quit streaming altogether at this point. Now, this is interesting because could this actually happen? Will it actually happen? And what will the ramifications of this be? Let's just talk about why Paramount Plus isn't doing well. Well, I think, honestly, one of the main reasons I can point to is that there's nothing really on there that's that interesting. Now, I know a lot of older audiences are, big fans of like the Star Trek shows and especially the Yellowstone universe, and that's all fine and dandy, but that's not what the core audience of today's streaming age is. A lot of the core streaming audience would be younger people like me, like Zoomers. And I'm not projecting, my thoughts on these shows as to why, they're not doing well. But I think it is worth mentioning that those are properties that are geared towards older audiences, the audiences that are dying off. I cannot think of a single Zoomer. I've not talked to a single person who has watched any of the Yellowstone series. Again, older audiences, yeah, they'll watch that shit all the time, but not younger audiences. And even something like Star Trek, which no matter how hard Paramount tries to push Star Trek towards a younger audience, just hasn't really caught on. And that's not my opinion as to why Star Trek is bad or whatever, but I think it kind of just shows Star Trek is a dying brand. Every time they try to resurrect it, it just hasn't been clicking. Let's just look at the box office, for example. I mean, obviously you can see Star Wars has a clear advantage over Star Trek, but I really feel like it's important to look at the details of how much of a discrepancy there is between Star Wars and Star Trek. The highest grossing Star Trek movie of all time is Star Trek Into Darkness. It made $467 million. The lowest grossing Star Wars movie is Solo: A Star Wars Story. At least live action. There is the animated one, but whatever. Solo: A Star Wars Story made $393 million, which is less than Star Trek Into Darkness. Good job, Star Trek, I guess. Granted, no one wanted to see Solo: A Star Wars Story, so take that for what you will. But despite that, Solo: A Star Wars Story still made more money than the 2009 Star Trek, because the 2009 Star Trek movie made $385 million. More people went to go see the Star Wars movie that no one wanted to see than the Star Trek film that was supposed to resurrect the franchise. And don't get me wrong, I think the 2009 Star Trek film is great. I think it's probably the best of the Star Trek movies. But despite being the best, but despite getting better reviews than any other Star Trek movie, and at the time making more money than any other Star Trek film to date, it still did not make as much money as the lowest grossing of the live-action Star Wars movies. And why am I bringing up Star Wars, despite the whole, Star Wars versus Star Trek thing? This is important. This shows that despite Star Trek being one of Paramount's biggest franchises, it's not a lucrative one. It's not one that's going to last. Star Wars, despite, how bad Obi-Wan was, and how underwhelming the Book of Boba Fett was, people still talked about those shows week to week, because despite them not really being great Star Wars, it's still Star Wars. There's still more of a broader audience to Star Wars. And not only that, even when we're just talking about how the shows are formatted, or not even just shows, but just like the franchises in general. Star Wars, you can have stuff involving the Skywalkers and following this big epic saga. You can follow The Mandalorian, where it's telling his story. You can follow Obi-Wan, which tells his story. You can follow Cassian Andor, and it shows you a whole new side of the rebellion and the Empire that you have never seen before. There's so much you can do with Star Wars, with how big the universe is, and how vast the history is, and just the different areas you can go to, just in creating different genres. Star Wars is practically limitless. Star Trek? Pretty much every show is just, we're sitting in a spaceship and we're going on an adventure. And that's practically every Star Trek show. It's practically every Star Trek thing that's ever been made. There's not much you can do in Star Trek. And even today, Star Trek has still not done anything to broaden its horizons. And that's not me shitting on Star Trek, because I really, honestly, just don't give a shit about Star Trek. But that's the problem. That is imperative to my point. Younger audiences just don't care about Star Trek, even when they do revitalize it. Even if it's really well received, it still doesn't connect on a box office level or a ratings level. It just doesn't connect with younger audiences, whereas Star Wars does. Star Wars does do that. And again, you look at the Yellowstone franchise, I have to say, what young people are watching Yellowstone? Like, honest to God, like, the only people that are watching Yellowstone are older audiences, and they're not gonna last that long. So I don't know how lucrative this Yellowstone franchise can be. Okay, so outside of, Star Trek and Yellowstone, what else does Paramount Plus have? Nothing. They don't have anything. The one show I've actively watched on Paramount Plus was the iCarly revival. And that's it. I honestly cannot think of a single show that I actually watch on Paramount Plus other than iCarly. That's just one show. That's just one show. Like, and I'm a Nickelodeon kid, but like, I don't really give a shit about their SpongeBob spin-offs, because SpongeBob hasn't been good in forever. I don't watch the Rugrats show, whatever this new one was, because I'm so confused as to what it even is. The more and the more I think about Paramount Plus, the more or even just the, Paramount company in general, I legitimately am starting to wonder if they even have the kind of franchise potential to be a successful streaming service in general. No one cares about Star Trek anymore. The Yellowstone audience is there, but they're old and they're not gonna be there very long, so it's not gonna be lucrative for very much longer. And I guess they have Transformers, but like, do people really care about Transformers anymore? I mean, I guess they're starting to get back into the movies with Bumblebee, and if Rise of the Beasts is lucrative, that's cool, but I don't really see anything else other than that, because the only thing you can really do with Transformers now are big live action movies, because yeah, you could do animated shows, but how many times have they made a Transformers animated show that just ended and we all forgot about? It's happened many times. And you can't bring what they do in the movies to TV, because that would be way too expensive. I mean, have you seen the budgets of these Transformers movies and the amount of visual effects there are? You can't do that in a series. And even now that Paramount Plus has included, Showtime, again, there's just not much there. They have Yellow Jackets, but again, that's not really a big series. Like, it's, it's well known and it's well received, but like, again, no one's talking about Yellow Jackets the way they did with Andor, or any of the Marvel shows, or any of the other Star Wars series, or even like The Last of Us. And that goes into HBO Max, which is soon to be retitled Max. God, I fucking hate that name so much. But even HBO Max, that has a wide demographic of shows for people to watch. Like, they have The Last of Us, they have House of the Dragon, they have Succession, they have Barry, they have Harley Quinn, they have Doom Patrol, or, well, had Doom Patrol, it's not going to be around much longer. They have Last Week Tonight with John Oliver. HBO Max has a lot of brand potential. There's so much that they can do, and it also helps that HBO in general is a very well-established streaming service that they've lumped into HBO Max, which again is just going to be retitled Max. I cannot really stress how much I hate this Max name. Why would you take out the HBO in HBO Max? Like, just call it HBO Plus or something. Just Max? Max? Are you shitting me? And going back to Disney Plus is really only just getting started. Because, yeah, they have a bunch of these Marvel shows and a bunch of these Star Wars shows, which granted, they've been hit or miss, which is kind of affecting their growth as of recently. And let's face it, Disney's the biggest film studio like ever. Like, they have everything that you would want as a entertainment fan. They have Disney, they have Pixar, they have Star Wars, they have Marvel, they have National Geographic and 20th Century Studios and a bunch of other things. And it's only a matter of time before they start adding more stuff in. As you guys know, Comcast still owns a third of Hulu, and by the end of this year, Disney and Comcast are gonna have to make some sort of a deal, and it's not even like a hypothetical thing. Like, they're going to do this. One of two things is going to happen. Either Comcast sells its share of Hulu to Disney, or Disney just sells off Hulu itself to Comcast. And whichever happens, you're going to see something happening in the United States that's already happened internationally on Disney Plus, which is adding mature content, because internationally they've added this Star brand hub on Disney Plus. Now, what's Star? Well, that's basically where you get a lot of the stuff like, you know, Family Guy or Archer or What We Do in the Shadows or a lot of these other mature shows, as well as these mature movies like Die Hard and Alien. And I've been saying this for years now. They're heading in this direction. Disney is wanting to capitalize on making Disney Plus as big as it can possibly be. And what would help it being bigger than adding a bunch of this other content that appeals to more general audiences? And we're already starting to see that even here in the United States, because last year they added the Netflix Marvel shows to Disney Plus, and even added an extra parental control PIN number thing, as well as content age ratings on Disney Plus. Really, what I've been saying for the past few years is going to happen. Disney is going to add in more mature content to the service, which in turn is going to make this service grow even bigger. So you have Disney Plus and HBO Max appealing to very big demographics, and then you have Paramount Plus, which again, I don't know what their demographic is, because no one cares about Star Trek anymore, and pretty soon the audience that does watch Yellowstone isn't going to be around to watch it anymore. So what does Paramount Plus even have? And if it does seem like Paramount Plus really has nothing to offer, I could see a world where Paramount Plus does fold, and then Paramount becomes a content producer and then selling it off to other services, like how Sony is doing it. Like, Sony currently does not have a streaming service because they don't really feel like they have enough material to actually make a streaming service. So what do? Well, they produce shows like The Last of Us, which go to HBO Max, and then they produce shows like The Boys, which go to Amazon Prime, and that's pretty much their whole deal now. They produce the shows that they sell off to other companies, and Paramount could very well do the same thing. And I feel like that would be very interesting to see where certain shows will go. Could we see future Paramount related content on Disney Plus? Man, that'd be so weird if we got Star Trek shows on Disney Plus where you can also watch Star Wars shows. Oh, But now I want to hear from you. What do you think of the idea that Paramount Plus might close down? Again, that's what the analysts are saying. But yeah, let me know in the comments below what you think. And also consider hitting that subscribe button, because if you don't, maybe you will become a streaming service.